I'm sat here at the table, poised and ready to write. Before me sits a new sheet of paper, blank and pristine white. I've been sat like this for quite some time, but nothing is coming through. I think I've got writer's block again. I can't seem to find my muse. I need something to spark my imagination, something to shock or confuse or amuse. So in an act of desperation, I turn on the TV to catch the evening news. Rita Chakrabarti tells me that Frank Bough has died today. He was 87, I see. Presenter of Grandstand on a Saturday afternoon and the very first host of Breakfast TV. Now, one thing that nearly always happens when I watch the evening news is I get comfy on the sofa and fancy a little snooze. Almost immediately, at least that's how it seems, I close my eyes and enter the world of half-awake dreams. Next thing you know, I'm standing on the gravel driveway of a large country house somewhere just outside Leicester. I've been invited to a celebration there by Mr. and Mrs. Bough, or as I call them, Frank and Nesta. I was greeted at the doorway by a leather-clad Rita Chakrabarti. She took my coat and welcomed me and said, "I hope you enjoy the party." She directed me down the hallway to a set of double doors, and as I slowly opened them, what a wondrous sight I saw. Hundreds of smiling faces, a party in full swing. People were drinking and dancing and generally doing their thing. I found the bar, got a beer, found a chair and sat myself down, and to my left I noticed I was sat next to Errol Brown, the lead singer of Hot Chocolate. You must remember him. Anyway, next to him was Errol Flynn, and the two of them were getting stuck into a bottle of gin. Engelbert Humperdinck was sat on my right. He asked me if I was having a good night. We made small talk and sipped our drinks. Now who do you think was sat next to Engelbert Humperdinck, drinking half a shandy? I could hardly believe it myself. It was only blooming Gandhi. Just then, Gina Lollobrigida and Elton John came back from the fridge with some Dom Perignon. "Oh, lovely. I much prefer champagne to gin," said a rather tipsy Vera Lynn. "I'm the same," said Michael Caine. "Just leave the bottle," said Big John Wayne. "I like champagne too," said a barefooted Gerard Depardieu, who definitely looked like he'd had a few and had taken off his socks and shoes. His feet were disgusting. I moved to another table. There I met Jake Thackeray and Nina Simone, who were drinking strawberry daiquiris while watching Sylvester Stallone, who was simultaneously arm wrestling Robson and Jerome, while Art Garfunkel, who sat on his own, played a lonesome blues on an old trombone, and Lulu blew a kazoo. I met Thomas Hardy and William Blake, who were drinking Bacardi and eating some cake, a cake that had been baked by Howard Marks. Also known as Mr. Nice, he gave me a great big smile and gave me a slice. Then he gave one to Grayson Perry and gave another one to Brian Ferry. And we all sat around and had a small glass of sherry and talked about music and art, which was nice. On another table I could see Benjamin Zephaniah and Benjamin Britten, who were discussing how mindfulness can be achieved through knitting. I wandered into the hallway and saw Marty Fellman and Marty Wilde sat on the stairs drinking pints of mild. When out of a side room came Rita Chakrabarti, still all dressed in leather. She looked me in the eye and said, "And now for a word on the weather." And there he was, weatherman Thomas Schaffenacker, getting stuck into a great big plate of cheese and crackers. And behind him I could see Peter Shilton, noshing away on a great big wedge of Stilton. And behind them I could see Charles Bronson and John Cleese, looking for some Branston to go with their cheese. "I can't eat cheese without Branston," said Bronson. "No, indeed," Cleese agreed. I saw another weatherman, Michael Fish, talking to the cyclist Mark Cavendish, who said he'd never seen a cuttlefish, but it was definitely on his bucket list. I grabbed a bag of chili Doritos, said a quick hello to Danny DeVito, and made my way to the library. There our hosts, Mr. and Mrs. Boff, were very proudly showing off their latest acquisition, a genuine Van Gogh. But my eyes were drawn to a Hockney, and sat in a high-backed leather chair was the one and only Lionel Blair, looking resplendent in his polyester flares. Immaculate hair. On the table I saw David Icke and Saint and Greavesy exchanging some mind-blowing conspiracy theories with the very psychedelic Timothy Leary. And on another table, Evel Knievel was playing canasta with Keith Chegwin and Burt Lancaster. Geronimo had cleared another table and was playing dominoes with Clark Gable. Somehow I found myself back at the buffet. There I noticed Dick Emery and Jason King playfully prodding a prawn ring with sticks of celery. In a side room I saw Bill Haley, who was doing his best to console Tess Daly, who, as a result of one too many Baileys, had thrown up all over his ukulele. The Comets helped him clean up the vomit. In the games room I came across Les Dennis, who was taking on all comers at table tennis, whilst quoting lines from The Merchant of Venice. "God made him, therefore let him pass as a man," he quoted as his forehand smash disposed of Jackie Chan. Next door in the quiet room, Bill Bailey and Che Guevara were discussing A Separate Reality written by Carlos Castaneda, when Howard Marks turned up with 4 pints of lager and said in a Welsh accent, "You boys definitely need a slice of this cake, isn't it though, but?" I could see Eartha Kitt, who was stroking a cat, while Lassie slept at her feet on the mat, and stuck up the corner all on her own, taking selfie after selfie in her mobile phone, as a stick-thin Victoria Beckham. She was practising her pouting. In the garden I could see a marquee, sat outside of which was Christopher Lee, who was having afternoon tea with the cast from Glee, being watched from the bushes surreptitiously by an overweight member of the royal family. You can work out for yourself just who that might be, but he definitely wasn't sweating. Inside the tent I came across Jacques Cousteau, who was in a drinking game with Marlon Brando. Brando was drinking double Cointreau and Cousteau was drinking double brandy, while they sat and listened to Bonnie Tyler read passages from the life and opinions of Tristram Shandy. For some reason George Melly and his friend Truman Capote both turned up wearing green Wellington boots and yellow duffel coats, and started to try and feed jelly to an Angora goat, much to the amusement of Vic Reeves and his comedy pal Rick Mail, who were both drinking foaming pints of ale. I got one myself and watched Johnny Cash and Jeff Lynne playing guitar and mandolin, while Ian Dury and Nana Muscuri sang rebel songs with Finbar Fury, helped by Richard Madeley, who played the didgeridoo, and Lulu blew a kazoo. Sat outside on the grass, Bob Marley and Laurel and Hardy were sharing a great big spliff, watched by a young starstruck Morrissey, who boyishly toyed with his quiff. I finished my beer and went to look for the loo. I walked back towards the house and noticed Carmen Miranda and Melvin Bragg sat on the veranda having a fag. They said the toilets were down by the stable. I came to a great big set of double doors. I opened them up. Who do you think I saw sat behind a big table? It was only blooming Rita Chakrabarti. She looked at me and said, "It's time for us to go. That's all for tonight. See you same time tomorrow." And that was that. The party was over, and I wake up slightly bemused on my sofa. So I'm sat here at the table, poised and ready to write. Before me sits a new sheet of paper, blank and pristine white. But now I've got this idea, thanks to my little snooze. Who'd have thought that Rita Chakrabarti would turn out to be my muse? Oh, and Lulu, of course, who blew a kazoo or two.
Bye.